Yo, mic check, 1, 2, 1, 2. What's going on with y'all, man? What's happening? If you've been rocking with me, welcome back. And if you're new here, welcome. It's your dread-headed host with yet another dose, keeping you engrossed from coast to coast. That's right. Unfortunately, due to travel arrangements, the High Yellow Hybrid could not be in the studio with us today. However, I know he's sending out his thoughts and prayers to all of y'all, so shouts to him. But it's about that time of the week again. Time for the Weekly Retrospective, where we look back at the comics we've been reading this week and kind of discuss a little bit of what we thought, or really this week, what I thought. And then, I always want to hear from you guys. So if you're not following me on Twitter, at Dion_LS, that's DION_LS, all right? Go ahead and follow me out there. Every week, I'm basically live tweeting my reactions to the comics. You can get little blurbs and stuff there. And even this week, I had somebody who tweeted back at me and actually corrected me on something that I had put out. And we're going to get to that later. I want to shout them out, but I want to kind of keep this to some form of structure. So what we're going to do, we're going to try something new. And hopefully this works out. This will be the new format. For this weekly retrospective, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about all the books that I'm reading. I'm not going to leave anybody out. But in terms of going in depth, to keep it kind of short, simple, sweet, to the point, we're only going to go over the top 5 in depth, and then I'm going to do little blurbs on the rest of them. So, mild spoilers ahead. I promise I'm not going to ruin the whole book for you, but obviously if we're going to talk about it, some things might slip out. So just be prepared for that. The top 5 books can shuffle in and out every week. Obviously, not every book is released weekly, so that's subject to change. And just because the book was on my top 5 one week doesn't mean it's going to be on the top 5 the next week. So always look out for those shakeups there. Oh, and if you have suggestions, if I don't name off a book and you're like, why aren't you reading this book? Let me know down in the comments. I'm always looking for new good stuff to read. Marvel, DC, Image, Dark Horse, Independent, it doesn't matter to me. If it's good, I want to read it, so let me know. Shout it out. I will be checking it out because I do read those comments, and I do love interacting with y'all, so let's keep it going. So, to start it up this week, I'm just going to go 1 through 5. My number 1 is going to be House of X. So that House of X, Powers of X series, really, you can read them. It's one long book. I don't know why they decided to release it as 2 different books. I'm sure it's some greater purpose that Jonathan Hickman is going to key us into in the very end there as to why it wasn't just one title. But really, you'd have to read both of them to get the whole story anyway. So House of X, Powers of X, for the sake of continuity, and they're releasing bi-weekly in that anyway with a weird release schedule, I'm just going to count them as one book. But the House of X, Powers of X title, for me, takes the number 1 spot this week with House of X number 3, written by Jonathan Hickman. All right, the plot of these books, let me tell you, man, it's unfolding fantastically. Hasn't skipped a beat since it started off. Even when it's jumping between books, even jumping between titles, you don't really lose anything. I know some people weren't too excited after the first book, but then that second book dropped, and now everybody's on board again. All right, they totally Edge of Tomorrow, Moira McTaggart, Moira X now is what they're referring to her. Kind of retcon, soft rebooted the X-Men, and they've been needing, I told y'all this before, I'm going to say it again, I'm going to keep saying it. We have been needing some good writing for the X-Men for the longest time. All right, I love this squad. I love that team, and they've just been kind of disrespected on the low while Marvel and Disney didn't have the rights to them in the movie universe. So, underhanded there, but whatever. The way this plot's unfolding here, all right, the character dialogue is another thing. It's so good. It's so good, that dialogue. Magneto, when he's talking to Cyclops in this issue, between him and Charles, that kind of radicalized rhetoric that he's using when he's talking about, you go out on this mission, and even if you die, you'll never die. Heroes never die. Shout to mercy. Founders of a nation are never forgotten. I love that dialogue there. Very, very cool. And speaking of dialogue, and this is, and I'm biased. Y'all know. If y'all been listening to me, you watch Rockin' with me, you know how much I love Emma Frost, the White Queen. Okay? And she had been absent from this book until just now. I thought they disrespected her when her name didn't pop up on that Omega level list that they had. Jean Grey popped up on there. Quentin Quire popped up on there in terms of the psychics and that. But Emma Frost, who before this was considered Omega level, as far as I know, did not pop up on the list. So, we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But she finally popped back up in the books. I've been waiting, and she's still just as bad as ever, let me tell you. Y'all don't know nothing about Emma Frost. All right? She strolls in there because they got Sabretooth on trial and just finesses everybody in that room without once using her telepathy. It's crazy. She's killing the game. That one panel with her and the cuckoos walking into the room is ridiculous. Oh, side note, because I just noticed this week, Hickman brought back the other two cuckoos, Esme and Sophie, that have long since passed. Speaking of Quentin Quire was his introduction, both of them have been gone. But I didn't even notice in House of X1 when they first walk into the humans walk into that Jerusalem habitat, they're greeted by those two cuckoos, and I mean they all look the same, they're clones. So I just assumed, I didn't really read the names that closely. I'm always forgetting their names, quite honestly. But then I was doing some research on some other stuff, and I realized, oh my God, he brought them back to life. So maybe it has something to do with that first panel where it's like Charles Xavier like standing over everyone's bodies that are like covered in goo. Looks like they just came out of some birthing pods. I don't know. Hickman is really playing this game with us, and I'm loving it. So, hey, we'll see how that turns out. This week also, he released the official Krakoan alphabet, because they have had little ciphers, in the front of the books and the back of the books. And there was one that some of these symbols showed up actually in panel in the first book, but that didn't really translate to anything important as far as I could tell. But with those ciphers that he has in there, go check it out. Use the alphabet. It's like you're gonna be like Ralphie with that decoder ring. All right, y'all know what I'm talking about. They actually will tell you, kind of give you a hint of what's coming next, and then what's coming after. It's next and then. So in this book, the next is It Will Be Done, and we're picking up with House of X number 4 coming up this week here. So I imagine it's just going to pick up with this mission that they have on the ship that they're doing right now. And then, so the Powers of X number 4 is coming out week after. The little cipher says something sinister. So shout to the Muppet Jared Takes Krakoa at ISnowNothing on Twitter for actually pointing this out to me, because I had it flipped. I thought this coming up week was going to be the Sinister, but he pointed out that it's actually next, or this current week, under the next logo, House of X number 4, It Will Be Done, and then Powers of X number 4 is something sinister. So look out for Mr. Sinister and Powers of X next week, but this week I am geeked to see what's going to happen with this cliffhanger. They tried to blow up the X-Jet, but they're not dead. So I want to see them scrap. I want to see them get at it. All right. Moving right along. Number 2 on my list for this week is going to be Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange number 18, Legacy number 408, because you remember when Marvel decided to try and do the Legacy numbers, make it look cool, make it look like their book's been running for a long time, which they have. But, putting a number 1 out there helps new readers get into it. And then they kind of realized that their folly, when people are like, how did I just go from Venom, number 2 to Venom 764. Like, what's going on? So they switched it back, but they still have the Legacy numbers on the books if you're looking. So that's kind of weird. I just noticed that today. So get it together, Marvel. Pick something and stick with it. Commit to the bit. But Doctor Strange, the 2018 book that's being written by Mark Waid. Look, let me tell y'all something. It kind of makes me mad. Doctor Strange has been a consistently solid title since like 2015, since the Death of Magic storyline. And I want to say that was 2015, 2016. When he first came back and had to deal with the Empiricrawl and all that. This book, amongst other books that have been less than stellar, has remained solid, and no one's ever talking about it. And I don't know why that is. Like, this Doctor Strange, even the movie came out, and like, I'm a huge fan of the Magic World and all that. So I'm biased. But the book itself, quality-wise, even the spinoff, that Doctor Strange Damnation, which actually is going to come back into play later. We'll get to that. Sticky note. But it's just been quality reading. So go back, check out that Doctor Strange 2015, I want to say is where it picked up, 2015, 2016. Even that new Doctor Strange 2018, I mean, they've reinvented the character. He's got a whole new look. He's got a whole new arsenal of gadgets. Like, it's crazy. And in this specific issue, 18, it was a fresh start for, Steven, after literally rebuilding the multiverse, or the universe, I'm sorry, I get that twisted, literally rebuilding the universe from scratch, piece by piece. And then getting finessed by Mephisto, having his one true love taken away from him on some One More Day action. This is a fresh start for him. So this whole story is it's a one-off story, quick. He just kind of pulls up, he drops into what's going on. It starts out with this family out in Kansas or Nebraska, or wherever they were, some one-horse town. And Doctor Strange pulls up on what for them seems to be a normal day. He walks into the house, and he's real quick with it. The way they tell the story is very great the way they tell the story in terms of his character, because you get it. Like, here's his character. Here's the kind of person he is. Here's the kind of things he has to deal with. Here's how he does it. He's an ass, but he's not 100% a dick, to quote Guardians of the Galaxy out there. So he comes in, he deals with this, I don't know, demon monster from another dimension that's trying to break through the plumbing, and he is tearing up this house. All right, and he's not having no crap. He walks in the house. Hey, my name is Doctor Strange. That's all you need to know. People start asking questions. He asked for them, the owners of the house, the mom and dad there. Hey, look, I need vinegar, dryer sheets, and barbecue tongs. And they're like, huh? What? He's like, say what again? It goes full on Sam Jackson. Talking about, did I stutter? Quality Doctor Strange, And I really appreciate what they're doing here. They're really keeping to the core of the character where he is. I mean, Doctor Strange, he is kind of like a Tony Stark, where he's kind of an ass. I mean, there's really no other way to put it. He's a little bit of a jerk, but even then, he's not a complete jerk, because while he does totally trash that house, he doesn't leave him empty-handed. He still does a nice guy thing, helps him out. So, go read that book. Like I said, I'm trying not to spoil a whole lot of things here while we're talking about this. Just give you kind of a general idea of the story, but it is a little bit of kind of a recap review. So, minor spoilers, I suppose. So, moving right along. Number 3 this week is going to go to Venom number 17, or Legacy number 182, which is being written by Donny Cates. So, for me, this Venom issue is going to take the place of Absolute Carnage on this list. All right, Absolute Carnage it's on the list. I did read it, but it's not going to be in the top 5 this week. Now, truthfully, the Venom and the Absolute Carnage are really bleeding together. It's the same writer. It's the same storyline that kind of popped off from Venom that launched into the Absolute Carnage event. So you read all that in the tie-ins, but the Venom specifically, I imagine reading that and then reading Absolute Carnage is going to be kind of, I won't almost say like Powers of X and House of X, but in that same vein of where we're reading 2 different books that are actually one story, for sure. And the continuity between these books, let me tell you, the continuity that Donny Cates has going on is quality. The tie-ins become important really quickly in the story. So it's not like, I can just go back and read these tie-ins. Like, maybe you don't have to read the tie-ins. I've been reading the tie-ins. Separation Anxiety is actually my favorite one so far. I haven't read them all yet. I read that one. I read the Deadpool. And I read another one. I can't remember. But I do like what he's doing here. All right, the artwork in this Venom story and the Absolute Carnage, but mostly the Venom, and bring it back. I really like the artwork in it. It's very dynamic. It's very lifelike with the character expressions. If you just look at the expressions on the young Brock, Eddie's son, in here, he's just so young, full of life, but also snarky, and you want to punch him in the face, but you can't because he's a child. Not that would stop the Maker. Which brings me to my next point of why this is number 3 on the list. I love that they brought the Maker back and that he's becoming a huge part of this story. I don't know. Somebody help me out. Let me know down in the comments. I don't know how he ended up in the Prime universe from the Ultimate Universe. I'm not mad at it, but I just don't remember how it happened. But he's been here and he's been kind of popping up, mostly in the Venom. And Venom knows who he is. And people know who he is, but he doesn't seem to be doing a whole lot of bad stuff necessarily. You could tell that he has some, nefarious schemes afoot, but the way he kind of conversates with the kids in this issue, in this book, is you almost forget that he's a bad guy. It's almost like, it's just another Reed Richards. Like he's having this little banter with Eddie's kid about, well, not really banter, but when Eddie's kid's like, oh yeah, my brother, and he just kind of like looks at him like, who you talking about now? Because the boy doesn't know that the boy doesn't know that he's Eddie's son. He thinks that he's Eddie Brock's brother. That's what Eddie told him. Now, to be fair, that's what Eddie knew at first, I believe, and then he found out shortly after that he was the dad, but he never corrected it. But it's just kind of cool where, little boy's like, yeah, my brother, and Maker just like, huh, what? And then they kind of talk about acronyms when he's naming the machine. And the Maker just cuts him off, and he's like, look, acronyms are for children and comic books. This is the machine. Doesn't need a name. It does what I want it to do. So very cool there. But even though he's kind of cute around the children, he's also a savage. And you remember that real quick when those symbiotes bust in. He was getting ready to straight murk that little kid in the symbiote from Separation Anxiety. That was, I mean, yeah, I love it. It's very true to character. Very true to character. It's Reed Richards, but it's not our Reed Richards. Not your grandma's Reed Richards. So yeah, slick with the tie-ins. And one of my favorite parts about this book this week was the return of the sleeper symbiote, which is, if you don't know, earlier on in the Venom line, this was essentially the child of the Venom symbiote. It kind of reproduced there, and so this is a baby in terms of its, I guess, lifespan. But that symbiote actually did end up coming into play during when some Skrull came to Earth, and there was this whole thing going on with that, and they had to go out into space. So it was super cool to see that symbiote come back, because honestly, I had forgot about it. I thought that maybe that'd be a one-off, and they'd come back whenever. But this is a great time for it to come back. So kudos for them for actually keeping that continuity together. But yeah, I mean, this Venom book, if you're not reading it, I don't know that you necessarily have to go back and start from the beginning, but it's been lit since issue 1. So if you don't got nothing else to do, definitely go check that out. But Venom 17 gets that number 3 spot this week. And moving right along. Number 4, going to be Avengers number 23, legacy number 723, written by Jason Aaron. If you're not familiar with Jason Aaron's work, he has been really in charge of the Thor run, as well as the War of Realms event that just ended not too long ago. And I really like that event. I really like what he was doing with Thor, with Jane Foster Thor, not female Thor, because that's disrespectful to Thor and disrespectful to Jane Foster as a character, because she's not just simply defined by her gender. At least I didn't. Now, Marvel Editorial seems to have gone ahead and done that in some of her later issues, where she's just kind of posturing, and she's just kind of there to be female Thor. I mean, it's even kind of bled over into real life with the live action. Every time you read a press junket, it's, female Thor coming to Thor Love and Thunder, not Natalie Portman or Jane Foster's Thor. Like, forget that the character has a name and everything else, though she barely has a name or personality in the movie to speak of, but I digress. Avengers 23. So we're finally getting to this Ghost Rider arc, which has been set up. Well, they really started this set up way back in Doctor Strange Damnation, which I mentioned briefly before, when Johnny Blaze Ghost Rider ended up becoming the King of Hell, where they had Mephisto trapped. So that's really cool that they're finally bringing that Ghost Rider story out. So it's like Ghost Rider, Johnny Blaze, and Robbie Reyes, because Robbie Reyes is on the Avengers squad at this point. But in the midst of trying to get that demon, the spirit of vengeance, exorcised from his car and himself, Robbie's dragged down into hell while that demon exorcism goes horribly wrong. And he's end up racing. He's in this race through hell against Johnny Blaze. It's super dope. It's super metal to see these two flaming skull people driving, flames trailing behind them over lakes of fire and bones and all kinds of just some grotesque imagery, but it's super cool. Very metal. Very 90s grunge. Oh, yes. Also, it seems that they've totally given up on that Savage She-Hulk design, I guess. I remember back when they first started this Avengers run, it was something, she got upgraded by the Celestials, where she took on a more Savage Hulk looking form. She wasn't like that sleek, old school Jennifer Walters, where she's still basically just a regular woman with a little bit more muscle definition and is now green. That's what they were kind of going for. This time she kind of turned out looking like straight up Hulk, but with longer hair. And then they just kind of gave up on that design. I don't know. I guess they're getting ready to bring her back into the movies. They don't want people looking at her like, oh, wow, she just this nasty looking like beast. But that was a whole plot point that they've just kind of given up on. So that's disappointing. You guys should really commit to the bit, Marvel. Again, it's the second time and I had to point that out. But hopefully, they get back to that. I liked the Savage She-Hulk look. The look that they have right now is kind of a compromise, but really every time she pops up, she gets less and less savage looking. And not because she's actually figured out how to tame that power, which is the plot line that's going on right now, but because the writers or the artwork or whoever's in charge of the artwork just decided, I want to look a little bit more sexy. Whatever. Oh, Cosmic Ghost Rider, though. And this, Cosmic Ghost Rider. Look, it's a Ghost Rider story, Ghost Rider themed story. So the Cosmic Ghost Rider's got to show up, right? You all forgot about him. Maybe you haven't been reading them. If you haven't read the Cosmic Ghost Rider run or that Cosmic Ghost Rider Messes with Marvel History book, go check that out. It's hilarious. I love this character. I'm glad to see him pop up again. My favorite part about this Avengers run is that we're getting a lot of characters that are out of that ordinary kind of shake of the Avengers. It's not just all about Cap and Thor and Iron Man. We're getting Blade. They brought Blade in. That's really cool. We're getting, which I told y'all, I called this way back in the day when Blade first showed up on the squad. I said Blade's getting a movie. They're not bringing him on here to not get a movie. So I wonder what's going to go on with this Robbie Reyes Ghost Rider, because last we saw him was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and I know they're not really tying in any of those TV tie-ins. I mean, it's kind of connected, I think, but they're really kind of steering clear of that, it seems, MCU-wise. But Blade, Man-Thing, really cool. Don't know about the Man-Thing. Big line from that. Anything that knows fear will burn at the Man-Thing's touch. He actually ends up burning this entire sleeping celestial that they've made their base in Avengers Mountain, which is super dope to see that he had that level of power. Also, was really cool that Captain Marvel is not just this cure-all. She's on the squad, but she's not just this cure-all. Okay, Captain Marvel pulls up, she's going to go ahead and rescue everybody with a punch. She has to struggle. They kind of gave her a backseat, which is good, because she's not that raw. She's just not. The movie's made her out to be way more OP than she should be. So I'm glad to see that somebody has a little bit of sense. It's still a team effort here. So really cool Avengers. That's my number 4 spot. And moving on to number 5. Number 5 this week is going to go to the Justice League run. Now, before I get into this was kind of a toss-up between the Justice League and the Martian Manhunter, actually. Because this Justice League book was kind of, sort of, just all kinds of setup. But it's still dope. Let me explain. Also, if you're not reading the Justice League Dark and the Justice League Odyssey series, what are you doing? Those are so good right now. So good. You got the Justice League Dark, that whole Dark team. It's all magic. You got Constantine, all those people. And you got Justice League Odyssey, which has Darkseid on the squad. Darkseid is on the squad. Say less, all right? Go pick it up. Darkseid is. But Justice League number 30, written by Scott Snyder, takes the number 5 spot. Scott Snyder and James Tynion IV. And put some respect on his name, all right? Co-written there. I love the artwork they got going on in this book. It's very angled. So, hey, shout out to Jorge Jimenez. Put some respect on his name, too. The artwork in this is dope, my guy. The angle character designs are super dynamic. So anytime they hit those poses, those action poses, somebody gets punched, or somebody's dashing towards something, it looks like the character's in motion, even though they're clearly just sitting still there on the panel. It's great. It's really cool. And I like some of the kind of redesigns he's done to the characters. You even got Lobo. Looks like he got some cornrows, which, hey, I know it sounds stupid, but look at that. That's crazy. More than that, the plot feels very epic on this one. It does. And maybe it's the gathering of the various characters, because they brought in a whole bunch of people, a whole bunch of villains, and a whole bunch of heroes. It is the year of the villain after all, so this is all kind of hyping up. It feels like this whole year of the villain event has to do with what's going on in the Justice League. It's kind of strange because they also have that whole Doomsday Clock thing going on that's supposed to be the overarching epic event, but they keep delaying it and pushing it back, so it's getting really weird trying to determine where that fits in the timeline continuity of all this. But hey, I still love what they're doing with this event. If they're gonna make me wait on Doomsday Clock, I'm totally fine to chill here with the Year of the Villain with this Justice League run, because it's just really good. I mean, what more can you ask for? You got the Legion of Doom. I mean, they broke the source wall, the multiverse is collapsing, they've traveled to the 6th dimension. Now, in this issue, they've introduced some time travel shenanigans, which we'll see how that turns out. I was excited. This, like I said, this issue is a little bit of pretty much all set up, especially since when you think about the issue that came before this, which is one of those all just a dream kind of fake out issues. A little bit disappointing to see another issue that doesn't move the plot forward. But, in the last couple panels, they give you what's going to be the upcoming plot. And it looks like, well, one part of the Justice League team went to the past, another went to the future, and the rest of the scrubs, the B team, stayed in the present to kind of do whatever they can do to defend against Lex Luthor. In the past, we have the OG Justice Society of America popping up, with your OG Green Lantern, with your Jay Garrick Flash. Like, it's dope. I don't remember seeing the Spectre this week, which is Disappointing because that's one of my favorite characters, obviously. And they really haven't done anything with him as far as I can tell since, I don't know, Blackest Night, New 52. Remind me where he's popped up. I know he's popped up over in the DC Black Label, or they've referenced him in DC Black Label. Or he was in that Batman Damned, but that was kind of, I don't count that. That was weird. But yeah, that character, not in the Justice Society of America, I guess. Hopefully he pops up in that past, add to this whole epic thing. We'll see. And then there's that boy, what was it? Carnage or something? Really weird. I think I'm supposed to know who he is with the Future Squad, but I don't know who he is. So let me know who that boy is if y'all know down in the comments. But that would wrap it up for the top 5 for the week. So then really kind of quickly, we're going to speed round. I'm going to go through the other books that I've been reading in no particular ranked order, just to kind of give you some other reading materials to check out if you want to. So Martian Manhunter number 8 came out, written by Steve Orlando. I actually really have been loving this Martian Manhunter run. It's kind of a detective noir story. You know, it's about John Jones as his human alter ego, where he's a detective. So there's supernatural elements to it, but it's not like Martian Manhunter just flying around shooting lasers and doing all kinds of. It's very down to earth. It's very character driven. The artwork is somewhere between great and trash, but it's very emotive. When they're going for the dynamic shots, it looks really cool. But sometimes the way that it's drawn, it just looks crazy. Like you can't tell if a character's eye is supposed to be open or closed, or their eyeball like floating half off their head in the panel. It's really strange. It takes some getting used to for sure, but you know, like I said, when they're emoting, dope. So check out that Martian Manhunter. Let me know what y'all think. I don't think anyone else is reading it or talking about it. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it is trash, and I'm just out here in my fantasy world. But I say recommend. Justice League Dark, number 14, written by James Tynion IV. That also came out this week. Like I said before, the Justice League Dark is really good. I mean, this issue itself was really just a lot of setup, which is why I didn't make my top 5. Issues that are a lot of just pure setup don't usually make, it's probably not going to make the top 5. I like the plot to be moving forward, but it's still really cool what they're going to. Year of the Villain setting up for the Witches War, I want to say. The Witching War is what it's going to be. My boy Constantine has been all over this book, showing up in and out, and I love Constantine, y'all. I'm so mad that they canceled Vertigo, Hellblazer, and all that. Like, give Constantine his own book. What are y'all doing? He comes in there, you know, just with the realest talk. You know, Diana's talking about the world's ending and this, that, and the other, and blah, blah, blah. And he just like, look, it be like that sometimes. Have a smoke. Chill out. Like, it's so for real. Also, Clarion, the little witch boy, didn't he used to look, he was just like, because now he's like this weird blue Friar Tuck looking kid with his cat, and I remember him looking like just some white boy in a black suit, almost like Death the Kid. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm thinking of maybe that's just the design of the OG Justice League, but I don't remember him ever being blue. But whatever, I digress. The Thanos, number 5. The Thanos 2019 Thanos. A lot of Thanos books out there, but the 2019 Thanos on its 5th issue is still ongoing. Written by Tiny Howard, I'm not sure. No disrespect. I've really been liking this book. I love when they kind of go off and do stories about the villains in a way, because you get a lot more character development there. And this one is, you know, kind of telling some stories about Thanos' past, although the book might as well be called Gamora, because it's more about Kid Gamora than it is about younger Thanos and his crew. But it is a really cool book. You kind of get to see where, you know, Gamora, how she came up, how Thanos came upon her. I mean, we know how he came upon her, but how she kind of grew to be the most dangerous woman in the galaxy, as he would say. So it's really good. I like what's going on there. Although this last issue was kind of, because they've been doing it where the narrator's in the future telling the story. So now they're kind of starting to line things up. And it's a different reveal than I thought it was going to be. I'm not going to spoil that. But I'm not so sure how I feel about where it's going. So we'll see. We shall see. Another one to look for. Thor, number 16, written by Jason Aaron. This, like I said before, this Thor run has been really cool. I liked what Jason Aaron has been doing. I like the War of the Realms. I like how it all wrapped up. This issue doesn't break the top 5, mostly because it's just another epilogue. and they literally just had an epilogue in this book the week before. So the most egregious stalling tactic award goes to Jason Aaron this week. All right, figure out what story you're going to tell next, and then start telling that story. We already got 18 different stories set up. Just stop writing the Thor book and get on the King Thor. I mean, we've already announced all these titles. Why am I even still reading this Thor book that is clearly ended? That little speech that Odin was giving was cool, but if you're not going to advance any sort of plot, then just stop. Just wasting time. You could be working on I like what you're doing. You're just wasting time. You could be working on something better. Go ahead and move on to the next, bro. Just move on to the next. And then lastly on the list, I had Absolute Carnage #2, written by Donny Cates. Now, it's not a bad second issue. All right, don't take the fact that it's not in the top 5 this week as it's a huge drop in quality, anything like that, because I did sing his praises with that #1 last week, and it's still good. It's not a bad second issue, but the Venom was just more exciting. And like I said, it's basically the same story in terms of where it's following. I mean, Venom's the main protagonist across this Absolute Carnage, what it seems like, so it just makes sense that his book is going to be very connected to the event. I love the artwork in it. I still love the brutality that you can feel in the artwork in this book and through the characters of just Carnage himself. Very cool. Now there's 2 of them running around if you haven't been keeping up. Not 2 Cletus Cassidys, but 2 Carnages. Carni. Whatever the plural of Carnage is supposed to be. Absolute Carnage. All right, so go check that out. Very, very interesting stuff that Donny Cates has going on there. The tie-ins and all that, apparently you're really going to have to read those. It's like important because Miles Morales popped up in this new one, and I'm like, he's been doing stuff, but apparently he has his own kind of tie-in book that's running right now, which I haven't read yet. So it's kind of jarring to see him there, so I got to go back and correct myself. But at the very least, at the end of all those books, they do have a reading order, so you don't necessarily get lost trying to do that. But with that all being said, that wraps it up for my pull list this week. All right. I'm going to leave the names of all the titles and all of that down in the description. Again, if you didn't hear a book on here and you're like, yo, you need to be reading this, let me know down in the comments. If you had any thoughts about maybe you disagree with my placement of some of these titles on the list, you thought this was trash or this should have been here or whatever, let me know down in the comments. Let's get this conversation going. If it's just me reading comics by myself, then it's sad. But if it's us reading comics together, then it's a comic book convention. And those can be lit, as you know. So, if you've been rocking with me this long, thank you, thank you, thank you. And as always, peace.